Chapter 1: The Bad News and Good News. Let's learn together. For the better part of the last decade, I have been asking questions, conducting case studies, and searching for answers on the topic of employer-sponsored healthcare. I like to think of this question and answer process in the context of best practices. By studying best practices, we can find practical and proven examples of how others have succeeded. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. As we implement more and more of these good ideas, we can begin to put these pieces together to form an overall strategy. This is the approach I have taken. In 2018, I started a local healthcare best practice group with a colleague in central Wisconsin. Participation was informal, and for several years I could count the participating employers on one hand. My colleague took another role, and she posed the question to me of whether I would like to keep the group going or to dissolve it. I decided to keep it going. Then COVID hit and everything shut down. As business revived, I continued to educate and equip local employers. Today, through much hard work and persistence, this group has grown to about 1,000 employers and 3,200 total individuals who support free market healthcare practices. In the spring of 2022, I began facilitating one-day conference events throughout the state, inviting employers to share their stories and the best practices they have implemented. There has been much ongoing interest from both private and public employers, and the group continues to grow. Through my experiences in leading this group, collaborating with other companies who have been successful with healthcare, while also implementing best practices firsthand, I have developed a comprehensive solution that I believe will interest you. I call it the Employer Healthcare Success Formula, and I'm excited to share the concept with you in this book. This publication is geared toward employer healthcare and is written for all who swim in that pond. This includes employers and all those who support employer healthcare, such as brokers, providers, administrators, and independent networks. A few conventional hospital and insurance carriers have attended our best practice events. When people ask me why, I can't give an answer. Maybe they were curious about this movement. Maybe they had genuine interest in learning. Maybe they were spying so they could counter with strategy. Or maybe they wanted to take a picture of me so they could put it on their dartboard. While I hope it's not the latter, it doesn't worry me. I will continue to openly facilitate the sharing of wisdom, knowledge, and best practices. We all have something to gain from this movement. The topic of healthcare has become the elephant in the room. Most people are aware of the issues and have lived through their share of bad experiences, but they are quieted by an underlying impression of powerlessness, maybe even intimidation. I've always believed in the philosophy, if there is an elephant in the room, introduce it. As I travel around Wisconsin communities, I regularly spark conversations with people I meet. The person standing in line next to me at the bank, a waitress in a restaurant, or a fellow Little League parent in the bleachers at a baseball game. I can tell you this, in Wisconsin, it is not difficult to stumble across someone carrying frustration or debt as a result of a healthcare experience. It is commonplace. The stories are replete with examples of rushed or disjointed care, endless referrals, charges for services not received, and missed time from work, followed by a piecemeal of grossly overpriced and difficult to understand bills. The stories all seem to follow the same pattern. They are like a broken record playing the sounds of the suffering of hard-working Americans. The $100 aspirin, the $87 blanket, or the $359 ice pack are not fallacies, but real examples of how ridiculous healthcare billing has become. And these are just the small things. I saw a bill recently in which the hospital charged $39.35 for a brief skin-to-skin contact after the mother had given birth. I had to read it twice. They actually had a line-item charge on the bill for what they viewed as medical care. Holding and hugging a newborn baby. My wife and I are foster parents, and we love babies. The thought of charging a fee to hug a baby is inconceivable to me. It is not uncommon for all of this hullabaloo to result in a family needing to file for bankruptcy, because as a consumer of healthcare, the patient is at the mercy of the merciless. Imagine having your wages garnished, a lien placed on your home, and losing your life's work through a bankruptcy, not because you made bad decisions, but because you had something unexpected happen and needed higher-level health care. I live in Wisconsin, which happens to be one of the worst states in the nation for healthcare costs, but this issue of exorbitant cost is not unique to Wisconsin. It is a national issue, and even the states with the lowest cost aren't that low. Candidly, when we talk about employer health care today, we talk mostly of bad news. Has someone ever said to you, I have good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear? I'm not sure about you, but I always choose to hear the bad news first. With healthcare today in America, the buyer of healthcare, employers and employees, are faced with a continual barrage of bad news. The bad news. For the past 20 years, healthcare costs have been rising at an unsustainable pace. For group health plans, it is not uncommon to hear of single-year increases of 20%, 30%, 50% or more. Employers of all sizes are feeling the pain. Unable to find solutions, a concerning number of small employers have thrown in the towel, unable to afford the premiums. Larger employers have been able to absorb the blows a little better. Notwithstanding a couple of black eyes, they are still on their feet, but their knees are getting wobbly and the room is starting to spin. No matter how big or strong, the repeated blows eventually take their toll. We see this effect with employer health plans, which have steadily degraded year over year to the point in which most are now only catastrophic in nature, leaving members functionally uninsured. This is to say they have an official-looking insurance card in their wallet, but the coverage is inadequate to protect their families from financial harm. A few concerning statistics tell this story. 2/3 of family bankruptcies in America are related to health care, and 3 out of 4 of those families had health insurance, American Journal of Public Health. About 100 million, or 41% of American adults, have medical debt, with a quarter of them currently owing over $5,000. In 2013, the projected annual medical cost for a family of 4 was $22,030, whereas this cost increased to $30,260 in 2022 for employees on employer-sponsored health plans. Milliman Medical Index. Employers and employees are losing trust in the American healthcare system, which has unfortunately become more about profit than patients. The depreciating effect these issues are having on employers, families, and communities is unsettling. We are talking about the health of an entire nation. Americans need real solutions, not more rhetoric and bureaucracy. The good news. Thankfully, there is some good news. It starts with employers recognizing the problem and realizing that, as the buyers, they have the power. If you have been searching for solutions and you would like to make healthcare a positive topic in your company again, you are holding the answers in your hands. The Employer Healthcare Success Formula has been empirically developed over a period of years with information taken from real-life employer case studies. It is tried and tested and has been proven to work in a variety of environments, in both rural and urban areas, with small or large employers, and with privately owned, publicly traded, or government entities. It's a sustainable option for employers and employees alike, and it strengthens with time. Status quoers and disruptors. Thus far, there have been fearless leaders across the country who have taken on the challenge to redesign and rebuild their health plans. While they have been more the exception than the norm, more and more employers are beginning to engage. Candidly, most people are not interested in trudging through the wilderness when the trail has not yet been cut. However, once someone goes in, it seems more are willing to go second, a few more are willing to go third, and so on. Many prefer at least a gravel trail, if not a smoothly paved road. Jim Hightower said it well, "The opposite of courage is not cowardice, it's conformity. Even a dead fish can go with the flow." He makes a good point. It is always easier to go with the flow, which is the current road, the easy road, even if the topography has changed so that it now leads nowhere. The healthcare industry often refers to these trailblazer folks as disruptors, individuals who have become conscious of alternatives, those who do not unconsciously, automatically go with the flow, those who are willing to be risk takers and to change the status quo path. I can say that many people have called me a disruptor. Candidly, I have never liked the sound of that word. It seems to give the impression that I have incendiary intent, that I wake up, kick my feet over the edge of the bed, and say, "What trouble can I stir up today?" One respected colleague told me that he views the word disruptor as a compliment. Maybe, but I still struggle with that. The inherent nature of the word disruptor seems to take the perspective of the one who is negatively affected by the disruption. Yet from the disruptor's perspective, a more appropriate word might be transformational leader, a type of person who acknowledges a problem and sees an opportunity to help, one who views problems as opportunities in disguise. This type of person can lead a group of people through a change from here to there, guiding, teaching, and even sometimes strategically nudging people out of their comfort zones to a new normal. The theory of disruptive innovation, first developed in the 1970s, asserts that companies can differentiate themselves from competitors with a business model that offers completely new products or services to fill the same current needs. In doing so, they can effectively make a big splash in an industry by changing the status quo. As young pupils in elementary school, most of us were not encouraged to be innovative. Rather, we were taught to follow the status quo and to conform. Learning was more or less synonymous with memorization, and there was little opportunity or encouragement for critical thinking. We were instructed to stand in a single file line, with no talking allowed. When it came to classroom etiquette, I was a good little student. I conformed to the rules, I earned good grades, and I was somewhat quiet and reserved. If you know me, you might find that hard to imagine. However, I remember one particular day in which I was overly talkative in class. I was disruptive. The teacher wrote my name on the board, which was followed by her underlining my name and finally circling my name. 3 strikes and I was asked to stand outside of the classroom. I was not listening, and I was guided back to conformity. We can presuppose that as long as authority figures are ethical and responsible, conformity is a good thing. It is important we live and work together well to form a civil society. Yet as adults, what are we to do when authority figures lose their way and by reasons such as power and greed begin to oppress and harm the communities in which they are tasked to serve? In such instances, I hope you would agree that speaking up and leading others away from the status quo in search of a better way is the right thing to do. In my opinion, all of us have a responsibility to do this. Interestingly, through the courage and struggle of common people like you and me is how the United States of America came to exist. Having a taste of freedom, early settlers, who eventually became Americans, were not easy to control. Similarly, when it comes to employer health care, I believe our motivation should be to right a wrong, to seek justice, to choose not to stick our head in the sand and wait for someone else to solve the problem, to stand up for people who are burdened by the current healthcare system and are forced to deal with the unfavorable outcomes it produces. Some temerity and nonconformist thinking will be required to solve these complex social problems. We must be willing to think outside the box and veer off the beaten path. This new path may be dimly lit and a bit rugged at first, yet we know that the experience of blazing this new trail will make a way for others to follow. It is on these uncharted, unconventional paths that the real solutions are usually found. Dr. Keith Smith and Dr. Steve Lantier, co-founders of the Surgery Center of Oklahoma and pioneers of the free market healthcare model, are a great example of this. In 2009, they began offering transparent bundled pricing on their website. Today, hundreds of people fly in from all over the world each month for surgeries. This has come to be known as medical tourism. People are willing to travel because they cannot find high-quality, affordable surgeries in their home state or country. Dr. Smith is passionate about the health of American healthcare. He shares his insights on the Hippocratic Oath physicians take in medical school. It is an oath we are all familiar with. First, do no harm. He states, for a physician to do no harm, one must care for a patient's physical needs at a fair cost. For what good does it do if we heal a patient physically while bankrupting him or her financially? Having worked my entire 25-year career for employers, I see the world through an employer lens. Employer-sponsored health plans account for the purchase of approximately 58% of healthcare, with the government paying for the remainder. In Wisconsin, employer plans account for 68% of healthcare coverage. As the payers, employers have the most influence. Therefore, they have the most responsibility for fixing our country's collective healthcare issues. A majority of employers are not educated on this topic, and as a result, they are not yet acting as true fiduciaries of their plan. A fiduciary is a person who has the legal or ethical responsibility of trust with one or more parties. Employer healthcare transformation is still an ambiguous topic, but it doesn't have to be. Employers must own these problems and should no longer delegate the management of their benefits, including important decisions, to a traditional broker whose interests are often financially conflicted. This book was written with two primary goals: education and practice. Both are critical to success. A person can know everything there is to know about a topic, but if this knowledge is not put into practice, the information is useless. Similarly, if someone is active but does not have a sound strategy or make good decisions, the effort will be fruitless. A sound strategy, mixed with good decisions and a willingness to act, is where the rubber meets the road. Having led one of the rare employer success stories in Wisconsin, I have something to say on this topic. Fueled by an intrinsic motivation, I have dedicated the rest of my career to help all employers do the same. It is my hope that in taking the time to read this book, you will feel equipped to lead your company on a successful healthcare journey. As the great coach Lou Holtz said, remember, every day, some ordinary person does something extraordinary. Today, it's your turn. If you are ready to join me, buckle up and hang on. It's going to be a life-changing experience.